Hi, this is Tamara from mooglyblog.com, and in this video, I'm going to be demonstrating how to crochet part 2 of the Spring Cellar Sweater. Please go to the description where you can get the link to this part, as well as the past part of the Spring Cellar Sweater, which is being shared in 4 parts over the month of May 2025. Of course, if you're watching this after that, it's all up and ready for you now on mooglyblog.com. As mentioned in the previous video, I used a USI 5.5 millimeter crochet hook. This one is by Furls, as well as Bernat Softee Cotton, and a few stitch markers. Let's go ahead and get started on part 2. All right, so to begin the front portion of our Spring Cellar Sweater, we actually repeat the first 16 to 18 rows, depending on the size you're making, that we made for the back. So here, since I'm making the smaller size, I've made rows 1 through 16. For the 2 largest sizes, you'll need 18 rows, 2 more than this. But again, it's exactly what we did when we made the back. Once you've got those 16 or 18 rows made, then we're ready to make the right front. All right, so to begin our right front, we are going to slip stitch in the first 5 stitches. Sounds familiar, right? We're doing that same coming in for the armpit, essentially, that we did when we made the back. We just want to make sure, again, to take our time and loosely slip stitch so that we can stitch into those when we make our sleeves. So there's 2. You can see I'm just taking my time, making sure those loops are the full size before I pull them on through. Might seem like a little extra, but it really does make a huge difference when it's time to stitch into that armpit or into that stitch, wherever it is. You can use this for all sorts of projects. All right, so there we are. So we've slip stitched in 5. Remember that first 4, what we're officially going to skip. Our next stitch is going to be in the same stitch that we put our last slip stitch into. So I'm going to start with a chainless starting double crochet. You can, of course, use whatever substitute for a double crochet you prefer or a chain 3. But we want to make sure to put this stitch in the same stitch as that last slip stitch so that we've just got 4 that we skipped here on the end. And then we can grab our stitch marker here and put that right in the top of that first stitch, or in the 3rd chain if you've decided to chain 3 instead. So after we've got that first double crochet or chain 3, however you like to do it, made, then we're going to return to our stitch pattern, but we're not going to go all the way across the row. So we want to skip the next 2 stitches and, of course, put 2 stitches right there, 2 double crochets, following the same stitch pattern we've been doing throughout. And of course, now that we've got our fabric established, it's super easy to see where each pair of double crochets is going to go. And basically, keep doing that. Skip 2 double crochets between the previous and the next, and you'll repeat that a certain number of times, again, depending on the size you're making. For the smallest size, you'll do it 11 times. For the biggest size, 21. Then we finish it up. So I'll get a couple more made, and we'll finish up this first row of the right front together. Okay, so now I am almost done with row 1 of the right front. And a good indication that you're almost there is when you reach about the halfway point across the front of your work. So let's look at what we've got so far. We've got those 4 stitches we've slip stitched over to skip. We've got our double crochet, and then we've got our pairs. So since I made this small, we've got our double crochet, 2 double crochet between the previous and the next, and then we repeat that 11 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now our repeat actually ends with skipping 2 stitches. So in our instructions, after you've made however many of those repeats you need to make, we have 1 double crochet between the previous and the next stitch, leaving the rest unworked. So that means we just come over here and add 1 little stitch right here, 1 double crochet. And that will be the center, and it should be the center of your work. That will be where our V grows out of. So now we're ready for row 2. So for row 2, we're going to work back across just row 1. We leave the rest of those unworked. We'll come back to the other half later. So we're going to start again with our chainless starting double crochet, or whatever double crochet substitute we prefer, right in that first stitch. And for this section, we're going to be decreasing each row. We want to have our V sort of stretch out towards our shoulders. There we go. Let me put a new stitch marker in this one here. Lots of stitch markers always come in handy, especially when making anything where you're going to be seaming or you want to keep track of lots of different stitch counts like a garment. I always recommend using them. All right, so now we go back to our stitch pattern We're going to work all the way across. It's going to be a little different here in the centers though, because we're going to keep sort of decreasing from the center. So to begin row 2, we've got our chainless starting double crochet here in our first stitch. We skip the next 2 stitches and work 2 double crochets between those next 2. So it's not going to look super different. It's just a matter of we're going to be doing this inside edge of the V differently. Other than that, we're just working in the same stitch pattern we've done all the way to the end. So we start row 3 our usual way with our double crochet substitute, whichever one you prefer. Get my hook straightened out here. There we go. And once you've got that made, you're again just going to follow the same stitch pattern we've been using for the rest of the sweater, right up until you get about to the end of the row. So I will meet you when we get there. So as you can see, we're almost at the end here of row 3. There are 3 stitches left, so the way we're going to finish this off so that we can continue decreasing and creating that V shape is we skip those 2 and just work 1 double crochet right in that very last stitch. Like so. There we go. So you can see, even after just 3 rows, we are getting that great V stitch on the inside and a nice straight side here along the arm. So we're just going to repeat rows 2 and 3, just like we were doing before, but now, of course, they're going to continue to decrease from this side. So repeat rows 2 and 3 here from this section until you have the number of rows made for your size. For me, the smallest size, we're going to be making 13. For the largest size, you'll make 17. And again, that's counting right here from where you started with the right front. So now you can see I have finished the right front portion for the size small, which means I have worked 13 rows, starting right here with the row we came in on and counting up. You should finish, no matter what size you're making, on a row 3 rep, which means you end up back here at the V. And also, let's take a moment and look at the stitch pattern and how it laid out so you can check your own work. You'll notice here we kept our seam straight, or I should say our side straight, working the ends here just as we worked the whole rest of the pattern so far. But over here, you can see we've done our decreases, and it's created half of that beautiful V. So now we're ready to move to the part of the instructions labeled right front neckline. For this, we want to add just a few rows working up straight. We don't want our V to get any wider, but we need to add a few more rows here to make this portion as tall as it was on the back. So again, it's just going to depend on what size you're making. You'll need to check your instructions for that. But from here, we just start working even in pattern. So let me pull this stitch marker out of the way here, or set it aside for this row, and we'll kick off here our right front neckline, row 1 together. We're going to, as always, start with our double crochet, chain 3, double crochet substitute, whatever it is you like to use. So I'll get mine made here. There we go. And put a stitch marker right back in the top. Like so. Then, now you won't be able to read the previous row here because we've been decreasing, so you'll want to follow the instructions and see that now we work another double crochet in this stitch, in that first stitch of the row, so to speak, and then we can jump right back into our pattern. We'll skip over those 2 and work 2 double crochets in between, like so. So we just continue in pattern across, and you can see we started with 2 double crochets on this row, so we'll end with 2 double crochets at the other end. So again, we just continue working in pattern. Most sizes will add another 4 rows here, working straight, and the largest size you'll need to add 2 more after that. So now you can see I have added 4 more rows worked straight. We're not decreasing anymore, we're just going straight up towards the shoulder. 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. And that's the case for the first 3 sizes. The largest size, you'll need to add 2 more for a total of 6. One thing to keep in mind, and double check, and this will be true in the written instructions, of course, but make sure you have the right stitch count here because you'll want the same number of stitches right here that we had on our back shoulder. Once you've got this section done, then it's time to go ahead, cut your yarn, and we'll get started on the other front half. And now we're ready to begin the left front. Note, we've come right back down here. This is where we finished off. We're coming right back down here. This was that final row of the body. And this is that center stitch, or space rather, where we put the stitch at the center of our V. And that's where we want to begin row 1 of our left front. So And by the way, the right and the left, this is again just a pattern convention. As we've talked about previously in this pattern, this fabric at this point is still completely reversible. So however it ends up for you is totally fine. But we're going to be starting right there. So we want to take our yarn and join with a standing double crochet right in that stitch. So how do we do that? We are going to flip over, put a little loop on our yarn here, or rather a little loop on our hook, loop of yarn. There we go. Yarn over, insert our hook right in that space, pull up our loop, yarn over and pull through two, yarn over and pull through two, just like we did before. And then we can mark the top of that stitch. Again, if you prefer, you can join with a different method. You can join with a slip stitch and then chain 3, work a stacked single crochet, whatever works for you. The point is to get a double crochet or something like it in that same space. And then we're ready to take off right on across the rest of the row. Pretty easy to see where we're going to go at this point, I hope. We're going to skip those 2 stitches and go right into that space. Now we're going to be doing the same thing that we did on the other side. But now, of course, our decreases will be on this end of the row, and we'll be working straight on this end of the row. Keep in mind, though, we're not going to work all the way across. We want to leave those 4 stitches right there. So for now, get back to your stitch pattern, and I'll meet you as we come to the end of row 1. Okay, so as you can see, I've got 2, 4, 6, 7 stitches left here at the end of the row, but not really, because our repeat says to work our 2 double crochets and then skip 2. So officially at this point, we have 5 stitches left. So if you're following along with the written instructions, that means we then work a double crochet in the next stitch. Now remember, we've skipped those 2, so right in that next one, and that will finish off our row and leave those last 4 stitches right there, all unworked, to match the little cut in for our armpit there on the other side. So from here, now we're back again, like I said, to doing the same thing we did on the other side. This side, of course, will be our straight side, and on this side, we'll work our decreases. And again, you'll want to work the same number of rows as you did on the other side of the sweater. And now you can see I have made the left front to mirror what we had on the right front. Once again, I've made 13 rows with decreases in the center and worked evenly here along the side. So you can see we've really mirrored the other side there, so we'll have a really beautiful V for our sweater. Of course, we're not quite done yet. We need to finish it off the same way we did here on the other side with 4 more rows, or 6 if you're making the largest size, all worked even in our main stitch pattern. And now we have finished the front neckline for our second side. You can see I've added 4 more rows worked even after our decreases. And now if I pull it to the center here, you can see we should have the same number of rows after our armpits. We should, of course, have the same number of rows before our armpits, and we should have a beautifully even open V. So now it is time to go ahead, after you go ahead and break that yarn, now you'll want to lay out and block your pieces if that's something you want to do. To block them, you just need to get them a little bit damp, sort of lay them out to match the schematic, which is included with the pattern, and then let them air dry. After that, we'll be ready for part 3. And that's how to crochet part 2 of the Spring Cellar Sweater. I hope you're enjoying this fun and easy crochet sweater pattern, and don't forget to like and subscribe.